Economists are touting California's comeback from the 2008 recession, but large swaths of people have been left behind. More people in the city of San Diego slipped into poverty last year, including 22% of the city's children, according to new census data. Peter Brownell, research director of the Center on Policy Initiatives, joins me now. Peter, the latest census figures show that poverty inched upward to 15.8%, and that San Diegans, 209,000 San Diegans, including 64,000 children, are now living below federal poverty level. Why is the poverty rate going up?
Well, the reality is, as you mentioned, the economy has recovered somewhat. The regional GDP is back up, above where it was when the recession started. But the poverty and income figures have leveled off. And really what we're seeing is, although people have started to get back to work, we've been adding jobs that were lost, but we've replaced a lot of good, well-paying middle-class jobs with service sector jobs that pay poverty-level wages.
And what are some of those poverty-level wages?
Well, the federal poverty level for a single adult is a little under $12,000 a year. So obviously, many jobs in the restaurant industry and the hotel industry that pay at or near minimum wage produce wages that a single adult or certainly someone supporting children would be below the poverty level.
So other cities in the county of San Diego, like El Cajon, Escondido, Vista, and Oceanside, also saw their poverty rates go up. And El Cajon is almost at 30%, Escondido 20%, Vista and Oceanside at nearly 17%. Is the story the same there in terms of low-paying jobs?
I think there's a slightly different industry mix. I haven't done a lot of detailed analysis of what's going on in each of the cities. Our report really focuses on the city of San Diego. I think some cities may face the same situation as the city of San Diego. Others may be struggling to even reduce their unemployment rates.
Well, let's talk about the federal poverty line. So the census data is based on that federal poverty rate. How realistic is that standard for a city like San Diego, where the cost of living is quite high?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the federal poverty level for a single adult is a little under $12,000 a year. That gives you $1,000 a month to live on. You can't rent an apartment for that much, or or if you did, you wouldn't have anything left over. So really. Yeah, it's not a realistic standard. In some of our other publications, we look more realistically at the budget. But yeah, it's a federal level number that's produced for the whole country and doesn't really reflect the situation faced here. So yeah, in fact, the situation is pretty dire for the folks who are below the federal poverty level, and even for folks that are considerably above it.
Right. So that's what I wanted to ask you. So what's the true state of economic hardship for people here in San Diego?
Well, we've produced another report that was based on last year's census data, which tried to look at a more realistic budget. And what we found there was that 38% of households were living below the standard that they need to really live fully self-sufficiently. So to not rely on any government aid, to not rely on aid from family or churches or nonprofit organizations.
So as you know, San Diego, the city of San Diego has approved a higher minimum wage for this area. It will go to $11.50 an hour by 2017. As you also know, there's an effort now to undo that, to put the issue to a vote. What does this report, what does the census data do in terms of creating a context for the minimum wage debate?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we see here is that 41% of the people who are below the poverty level in the city of San Diego are people who are employed. So that policy, were it to overcome the challenges that you've mentioned and were to be implemented, that's a policy that could make a huge difference in those, not quite half, but 41% of the folks that are below poverty would be boosted up by if they were to receive a higher wage, because they are folks that are out there working hard trying to make ends meet.
And what about the visual signs of these poverty rates? How are they manifesting themselves?
That's a good question. I think, I don't necessarily know that I have any visuals, but we certainly hear it when we talk to folks around things like doubling up on housing, folks that are living, many generations in a house, not because that's their choice, but because they really can't afford it, or folks that are skipping meals, parents that are skipping meals themselves so that they'll be able to feed their children.
Peter Brownell, thanks so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure.